trendsetter. Whoa, league of my own, it don't get better. No, read what I wrote.
So it's really simple. You fill out an online application. Our website is bakersfieldangels.org.
Welcome back to the Passion to Paycheck podcast. On today's episode, we have Allison. Hey, Allison, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate you saying yes.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So to get started, we'll go ahead and let the audience know a little bit of your background and what you're currently working on.
Yeah. So my background, my husband and I are actually in the dairy business. So we milk cows for a living. So that's kind of a unique thing. And I'm also a mom of 4 kids who recently, we are now empty nesters as of this year. So our youngest just started his freshman year at Cal Poly. So I have been just a stay-at-home mom who also is the controller of our business, so do all the finance part of it. And as my kids were getting a little bit older, just kind of looking to see what was my next give back. I've always been really involved in women's ministry at my church, but I've always had a heart for the marginalized. I just kind of like the outliers. I kind of like the underdogs. Maybe because I relate with them the most. I don't always polish up so nicely. So I kind of like that. I kind of like the people out in the wilderness. And so ironically enough, I was listening to a podcast similar to this about 6 years ago, I believe. And on the podcast was Susan Ramirez, and she's the CEO of National Angels, which is a national nonprofit to walk alongside children and youth experiencing foster care. And I really had no major connection to foster care. I have an adopted brother, so I know what it looks like to have some childhood trauma and abandonment issues and what that looks like. But I sat in my driveway and I couldn't get out of the car. I just had tears streaming down my face as she was talking about statistics surrounding youth that age out of foster care. And we'll get into some of those, I'm sure, today on the podcast. But statistics like 50% of our homeless population has spent time in foster care.
Oh, dang.
Studies show that up to 80% of our prison population has a touch point in foster care. Most kids that are rescued from child sex trafficking rings come from foster care. And it just goes on and on from there. And I thought to myself, why is nobody talking about this? Like at the time in Bakersfield, it was always on the news how our homeless population was growing. It had grown 50% year over year. And we were always, people have big opinions about our prison population and big opinions about teenage pregnancy and drugs and all these things. And I'm like, if the upstream issue is foster care, like, why is no one talking about it? So I went in my house and started Googling it. And right there, I just thought, maybe this is what God's calling me to do. Maybe this is a way that I can give back to our community. And so that's kind of where I just kind of threw my little rock in the pond and to see what kind of ripples could be created and started the application for bringing a local chapter to Bakersfield.
Oh, nice.
Love it.
That's awesome. So how long have you guys been here in Bakersfield?
So 4.5 years. Okay. We launched during COVID. That was fun. Good time to launch a nonprofit and raise money. But we launched 4.5 years ago, and it's been incredible. I mean, riding the wave of the miraculous for sure. Right. Just seeing, we have over 2,000 kids experiencing foster care right here in Kern County.
Wow.
And we have to remember about a kid in foster care is nobody is in foster care because of any fault of their own, right? It's because of other people's choices. And yet they're taken from their home and their biological family and placed into a stranger's home. And kids will, on average, while they're in foster care, move 7 times while they're in care.
Oh, dang.
So you think of the initial traumatic event of being taken from your family and then being placed in a home where you know no one, and you have to assimilate to their rules and what that looks like and start a new school and, just figure out how to work your way in the world. And then for whatever reason, maybe because you act out, as all kids do,
right.
You can be 2 weeks notice can be put in, and then you find yourself moving to another new home, most often another new school, and so on and so forth. So each time they move, they fall 6 months behind from an educational standpoint because they're going to a new school, and oftentimes they'll miss 2 to 3 weeks at a time of school as they are in this transition. So what that means is that only 50% of them will graduate from high school.
Wow.
Oh, dang.
Only 3% will get a college degree. And so they just have so many odds stacked against them. And so we just believe that relationships can heal trauma. And when we can put a healthy adult in these kids' lives that say, hey, you matter and I'm holding on to you. And if you move, I'm going to move with you. That's really the heart behind our mentorship program, which is called Dare to Dream.
Okay. So what's the main mission as far as the Angels goes?
Yeah. So our mission is to wrap radical relational support around children, youth, and families experiencing foster care. We have 2 programs. The main one I really want to hone in on this podcast, because my guess is your audience probably looks a lot like you guys, and we're always looking for male mentors, is our Dare to Dream program. And so Dare to Dream is when we match what I call a healthy, compassionate adult with a youth experiencing foster care between the ages of 11 and to 24. And you become that youth's person. You become their cheerleader, their advocate, their role model, but mostly just their friend. Because like I said, these kids don't have consistent adults in their life. What they know of as adults in their life have been flaky and inconsistent. And so they grow up with a narrative that they're disposable. That if things aren't working out, people can say, you know what, I changed my mind. I'm not gonna do this anymore. And so these kids, because of that trauma, that's why their lives turn out the way they do. When you don't feel like anyone cares about you, you pretty much start not caring about the choices and decisions you're making, right? Because who cares? Like nobody cares if I go to prison. Nobody cares if I end up homeless.
They have no love.
Yes, exactly.
They miss that.
It's the cornerstone for all of us, right? And I say none of us probably had perfect childhoods, and some of us had some relatively traumatic ones, but people that end up being successful adults, you can look back and there was always somebody holding on to you. It might not even have been your parents, but maybe there was a teacher that's like, hey, you're really good at math. Or maybe it was your coach that's like, hey, you're really good at wrestling, or whatever it is. There was somebody calling out the gifts in you that you're like, okay, I have something to offer to this world. But because these kids move so often, they don't have that consistent thread through their life. They're not known. Their teachers don't know them from 3 years. They don't know their siblings. So often when they go into care, they're separated from their siblings. And so they're just out in this big old world bobbing around in the ocean, right? And with no one holding on to them. And so the waves take them down. So the heart of our Dare to Dream program, really, it's not rocket science. It's like investing in a kid that's worth it. And I say all the time, these kids are wards of the state. So they belong to us. If you're a taxpayer, unfortunately, we probably all are. But these kids belong to us, and we can do better. Mm-hmm. We can do better by these kids. And what the Dare to Dream program looks like is it's a twice-a-month commitment. So it's not a huge, heavy lift. It's saying, hey, twice a month, I'm going to take this kid to Raising Cane's, and I'm going to shoot the breeze with them and ask, how's school going? How you doing with your grades? Whatever. Or I'm going to help them get signed up at the gym, and I'm going to work out with them. I'm going to just, hey, guys, we know guys connect shoulder to shoulder.
Right.
Today we're connecting face to face. That's what women like. But most guys, it's shoulder to shoulder, right? Yeah. We're watching a game together. We're connecting. Yeah. We're working out together. We're shooting hoops. And so it's not rocket science to walk alongside these kids, but it's incredible what happens when a kid knows that they're known and they're valued and they're seen. Right. It changes everything.
Big difference.
Big difference.
So what have you found is kind of a big challenge when getting the kids in the program and keeping them in the program?
Great question. So getting them in the program is really not a challenge. Shockingly, we already have 118 youth are matched in our Dare to Dream program. So we have 118 youth, and half of them are male, which is really incredible because we match boys with men and girls with women. I think it's very important, especially for the guys in our program. They have not had a healthy male adult in their lives at all. And so it's so important. How do you model, how do you dream about who you can become when it's never been modeled to you? You've never even seen what it looks like to be a provider and be a caretaker and be an invested man in a youth's life. And so getting the referrals, that's not hard. These are youth that raise their hand and say, I don't have one healthy adult in my life, and I would love that. That's crazy to me when I think about it. I have 4 kids, And if I was, when they were in high school, I'm like, hey, you want to get a mentor? They'd be like, you get a mentor. Like, I don't want a mentor. Handle your own life. But that's because they have so many healthy people surrounding them.
Yeah.
These are 14, 15, 16-year-old boys saying, hey, I don't have anyone in my life. Like, I would love to have somebody walk alongside me. So getting them in the program is no problem. But the barriers are because they do bounce around a lot. A lot of them have some run-ins with the law. That's common. But the beauty of our program is we just keep showing up.
Right.
What we tell these youth is there's nothing you can do to shake me. Right.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere. So you end up in detention center, I'm coming to visit you. You end up in a new home, a new school, I'm going to be the one waiting for you. A lot of times we have our mentors when the youth find out they have 2 weeks notice. It could be they get caught. Hey, let's have some real talk, right? They get caught smoking pot. And so their caregiver goes, I'm not doing this. I'm going to put in 2 weeks notice. Well, I had 4 kids. You know how often I could have put in 2 weeks notice, right? I mean, it's like, I'm going to go ahead and move you on down the road. But that's my kids know their relational permanence with me, right? That their placement stability is not going anywhere, even when they make bad choices. So the beauty of our program is when that happens, their mentor can show up on that day and say, hey, I'm coming with you to the new house. Like, I'm that one consistent person that isn't going to change. And so I tell our mentors all the time when we're training them, you are now the relentless pursuer of this youth's future. Right. And we tell the youth it's a two-way street, but it's not. It's one way. It's the mentor to the youth. Like, you can't shake me. I'm coming after you. I happen to be a person of faith. And I say all the time, you're going to relentlessly pursue them the way God relentlessly pursues you. And I say all the time, if my relationship with Jesus had to be like me going to him, we would have broke up a long time ago. Right? But he's just always coming after me. And that's what I tell these mentors. You're going to pursue these kids. You're going to be on their heels. Hey, you're not shaking me. And then it takes a while. And after a few months, they're like, oh, wait, maybe this person is that person that's not going to flake on me, that is going to stick around. Yeah. And then that's when the magic happens. That's when we see.
That's what they need.
That's what they need. They need to feel safe. Mm-hmm. And they need to know that their seat at the table is not going to be taken away. Yeah. Because so often when you think about it, it's like, I'm gonna push you away before you can push me away, right? Their walls are up because that's what they've had. So they're like, oh no, you're not going to flake on me. I'm going to flake on you. Right. And they will. Often at the beginning of these matches, they ghost their mentors. They don't text back. They make plans and then they don't show up, or they decide to go to the mall with their friends. But I'm like, no, you're going to you keep pursuing and keep pursuing. And then all of a sudden the magic starts to happen. So it's what's so beautiful about these matches is so many of these youth, they haven't had the experiences that most kids have, right? They haven't went to the pumpkin patch. They haven't went to a gym. They haven't been in organized sports. They haven't went to a restaurant and had a steak. I mean, they just haven't had so many of those normal childhood experiences. So anything that you do with them, you don't need to take them to Disneyland. That's not where the magic is, right? They need to go to Home Depot and learn how to get paint. And what does it look like to, fix a hole in a wall? I mean, they just want to do life. Right. And that's why I think it's such a big calling on a man in our community to give back to the youth in our community, because you don't have to have any special training. You don't have to, we match very intentionally in our program. So let's say right now at the filming of this podcast, we have 11 male youth between the ages of 11 and 18 waiting for a mentor. I don't like that. So when you ask about the challenges, for me, it's not us getting the kids, it's getting the men in our community to rise up to the call in their life to give back, to give to some youth what somebody gave to you, right? To get you here. But we match very intentionally. So we're not going to match, you guys with some kid that wants to be an engineer. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, there's a youth that's like, I'm really into working out. I'd love to be matched with somebody that's into that. Okay, I got your guy. Or I'm into cars. Like, I want to learn how to fix things or whatever. So we try really hard to match these youth. And the beauty is, for once in their life, they get to pick. Yeah. Because these kids don't have agency. They don't get to pick what home they live in, whether they get to stay with their siblings, what school they go to. So when we have a potential mentor, you guys say, hey, yeah, I want to do it. We send them your bio. And they're like either yay or nay, which is empowering. They don't get to do that. Right. And so they have skin in the game. And then we're just like, hey, go do life together. You know, we have milestones we want you to try to help these youth with, right? Like get their driver's license, get a first job. But mostly we just want you to do life with them. Doing life with people, that's how you change their life, right? You just kind of integrate them into your own life.
So it seems they need just do the normal stuff, feel authentic, and do alongside somebody that can support them.
Absolutely.
That's what they don't have.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's scary to do life. Life is scary.
It really is.
It's hard. And to think they're going to walk into the DMV and try to fill out paperwork by themselves, often they don't even have their birth certificate. They've moved so many times. But, you know, when you have someone next to you going, I'll go with you and I'll advocate with you at the window when they try to say, oh, take a number, wait long. You know, it's like, no, he's been waiting. Like, it's our turn.
Yeah.
They have to learn to find their voice. And they haven't had a voice for so long. And so it's the beautiful thing is, as we watched in so many of these different matches. So let me just pull one. Okay, so we have a youth in our programs. And when he was 10 years old, his dad passed away. And his mom struggled with drug addiction, so he ended up in care. So he was matched in our programs, I believe, when he was like 13 years old, with a male mentor, and he's big into football. That's all he wanted to do was play football. So his mentor got him signed up with I-9 Sports and started taking him to his practices, going to his games on Saturday, cheering him on. You know, I mean, this is just guys doing guy stuff, right? That's not complicated. Well, now this kid has been reunified with his bio mom. And the mentor got to go with him. You know, he doesn't have a male figure in his life. And he started his freshman year at BHS this year on the football team. Wow. And his mentor is coming to his games. And we interviewed him not that long ago. And he said, you know, like every 14-year-old says, I'm going to be in the NFL someday, you know. And he said, and Scott, he's going to be in the VIP. This is his mentor, right? Like he's going to be the guy. And he's like, and I imagine someday when I get married, he'll be my best man. That's it right there. That's
what you want to see.
That's what you want to see. Mm-hmm. And this is a kid who was really struggling with self-esteem, with, you know, working, trying to get good grades. But, you know, you give a kid something other than school to motivate them. Like, hey, if you get good grades, you can play football. If you get good grades, you can go to the gym, whatever it is, like find what makes them tick. Care, actually say, let me see your homework. What do you got going on? What do you need help with? Hey, none of us have gotten to where we are in life by ourselves. Like you don't live in a vacuum. It's all the people that have opened doors for you. And these kids deserve it. They deserve the same advantages that our own kids have.
That's right.
And how has the foster care community in Bakersfield responded to the program the last couple of years?
Incredible, really incredible. I think what's happened is we're just meeting a felt need. There is a gap in services, you know, and so I think social workers, judges, it's a huge advocates of our program. You know, like I said, our kids have had some run-ins with the law. And when they go to court and the judges find out that they have a Bakersfield Angels mentor, they're much more likely to release them without time because they're like, I know somebody is holding on.
Give them a slap in the hand.
That's right. That's right. Because when you're attached to somebody, the likelihood of you doing really stupid things goes way down than when you think there's nobody in this world that cares what you're doing, right? Oh, yeah. Because, I mean, what do you got to lose?
Yeah.
And so it's been an incredible response. It was a slow rollout. You know, people are like, are you just a flash in the pan? What are you doing here? But when they're like, oh, no, they're serious, it's been great. And honestly, now it's the opposite. We have too many kids and not enough people. And here's what I know in Kern County, you guys, and I didn't know this till I got into the space, is we actually are not resource poor in Kern County. There's tons of resources for kids exiting out of foster care. There's help with housing. There's help with college if they want to go. There's help, you know, with all of these things, but they're not getting connected to it, right? So I say all the time, we don't need more programs. We need more people, right? There's enough programs in this world, and this is not a government issue. We don't need the government to solve our kids' problems. We need us as a community
come together.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. Like the change starts with us, and we can do better by these kids.
Oh, yeah. That's the future.
That's right. Yeah. I say it all the time. You change a child's life, you change your city's future.
Oh, yeah.
What's kind of been a surprising outcome throughout this last few years that you guys have been in Bakersfield?
Never in my wildest dreams could I imagine the impact that this could have in such a short period of time. You know, I think so often when you build something, you're like, oh, hopefully in 50 years, you'll see the impact. I believe with my whole heart in just 10, 15, 20 years down the road, our city is going to look different because these kids have invested mentors in their life. And because already these are kids. So one thing you have to realize is, so we've been around for 4.5 years. I bet we've probably celebrated 100 adoptions, which is incredible, right? Like kids that are in foster care that have been adopted. Sorry, I'm gonna make sure this is turned off. But only 3, I believe, over the age of 12. So here's what I know is if you're in foster care as a teenager, these are the kids that we're matching in our programs, the likelihood of you aging out of foster care without a forever family is really high. So these are kids at 18 years old that are like, hey, good luck, go navigate life on your own. Like, what? My kids, no. My oldest is 26 and she's still calling me, right? Like, there's a light on in my car. What do I do? I mean, isn't that what life is? It's like you don't just all of a sudden turn 18 and know how to do things. And so that is the part. So imagine, of course they end up homeless. Of course they end up in prison. Of course they end up in unhealthy relationships because it's still a relationship, right? It's still attachment. Why do kids join gangs? Because they want to be a part of something. So we're going to have all these big opinions about kids' bad choices, but it's like, well, how are we empowering them to make better choices? They're making those choices because they're trying to connect. So when you talk about the outcomes, we have a kid, well, I could tell you guys so many different stories, but we have a youth that was, I don't know if you guys know anything about group homes, but group homes are kind of like the last stop in foster care for kids that have bounced from placement to placement. And it's like, all right, we don't have anywhere for you to go, so we're going to put you in a group home. And, it's, I don't want to call it institutionalized care, but it's not what you want for anyone, right? And so they end up in a group home and they just don't get to get out a lot. And so these youth, when they get matched with a mentor, everyone in the group home's like, I want a mentor, because they're watching them go out doing fun things, right? Like, oh, I want to go to the hockey game. I want to go to the Condors game. I want to do something. So we had a youth in a group home and he aged out and his mentor literally just took him in as one of his own. He already has 4 kids of his own, I believe. And him and his fiance got married and his youth was in his wedding. And they took family pictures and he's up on the walls in their room and he helped him find his apartment, fill out all the paperwork, get all the stuff to move in. And just a couple of weeks ago, he sent us a picture and there's him and his youth. They're in Hawaii. This kid who's 19 years old, who's probably never seen an ocean in California before, is in Hawaii. And that stuff blows my mind.
That's amazing. That's what you want to see.
That's life changing. And just a couple of weeks ago, we have a youth. A couple of years ago, I was at a graduation for independent living program. It's to get these kids ready to live on their own. And I met this incredible youth. She, you just know somebody, you're like, this kid is going places. And so I said, hey, would you be interested in a mentor? And she's like, absolutely. So we matched her with a mentor who's fantastic. I believe she works at Chevron. And they've just been navigating life. She's going to college, getting her first job and whatever. Anyways, we were reached out to, so this mentor I was just talking to you about, he works at Caliber Collision, the one that took his youth to Hawaii. He reached out and said, hey, Caliber Collision wants to give a car away to one of the youth in your programs. Like, who can you think of? And I was like, oh, this girl. She's incredible. Like, she could use a car. She's been having a hard time getting a job because try to get a job when you don't have reliable transportation. It's the bus. We all love the bus, but let's be realistic. It's not the most reliable, place. So anyways, did all the paperwork, filled out all the things. And 2 weeks ago at the Condors game, they rolled that car out on the ice and she got the keys to her first car. Wow. That's how you change somebody's life, right? You get them a job, you get them reliable transportation, you help them get, some steady income, and she's never going to be the same. And I believe with my whole heart, if we hadn't intersected with her 2 years ago, her life would look wildly different right now. So, and there's just story after story. But I'll just never get over a kid that I feel like would have nobody holding on to them. Now just knowing when they're going to court or they're going to the DMV or they're playing a game that there's somebody in the stands with their name on a poster. Like, no, everything. I mean, having someone cheer you on in life is everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Make a big difference for sure.
Big difference.
More impactful, more kind of
When
someone to look up to.
just you as a personal trainer, just thinking the difference. Why do people have a personal trainer? Because it's really freaking hard to work out on your own, right? To stay motivated and like have somebody say, "Hey, I see the growth that you're making." Because we know that in our own lives, you don't ever see growth in yourself, right? Because
We're our biggest critics.
Right. And we know all the bad stuff. And growth happens so slow. It's like with your own kids. You don't see them growing up. They don't feel like they grew a lot. And then somebody's like, they grew a foot, And same with a personal trainer. It's like you're tracking their gains. You're like, and then when they're feeling frustrated, you're like, no, but look at how strong you've gotten in this area, and keeping them focused.
Yeah.
So it's no different. It's just like, who's paying attention to me, and who's like saying, hey, yeah, maybe you didn't get it all right, but I see growth. And imperfect progress is still progress.
Yeah, exactly. So are there any statistics out there that people don't really realize about the foster care system?
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned some of them, but I mean, it's wildly shocking. So only 50% of youth that age out of foster care will even be employed at the age of 24. Only 50%. And of those, half of them below the poverty line. So when we talk about, like I said, anything like homelessness has its roots in foster care, the prison population, 70% of girls that age out of foster care will be pregnant by the age of 21. And so and then the cycle repeats, right? Yeah. Then they have kids and they can't hold on to them because they don't have jobs, they don't have housing. So then their kids go into foster care. And so it just goes on and on. So there's a quote by Desmond Tutu. He's Nobel Peace Prize winner, but he said, there comes a point where we got to quit pulling people out of the river and we got to travel upstream and find out why they're falling in.
Yeah.
It's foster care.
That.
It's 100% foster care. And so if we can do better by these kids before they fall into the river, if we can link arms with them and say, hey, I got you, so that they don't fall into the river, our town, our homeless population is going to look different. Our prison population is going to go down. Our sex trafficking population, believe it or not, men, is wildly rampant in Kern County. We are one of the hubs for sex trafficking in California. Yeah. So all of these issues are going to decrease just because of this minimal investment, when kids are still young. It's really hard to change somebody's life when they've already screwed it up. I know this to be true. I did a lot of work with the homeless population before this with Flood Ministries. And, when you've made so many life choices that have ended you up in prison or with addiction and all that, it's not like you can't turn your life around and make it better, but it's really hard to go back and repair everything, right? Yeah. So it's like, why don't we set these kids up for success before all of that happens so that they can be, a productive member of society? We'll all be better for it.
Oh, yeah.
And they deserve it. Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan I'm the great equalizer. Like, it's everybody deserves somebody rooting for them and kicking open doors for them. I say it all the time. My kids, their first jobs, their internships, you know why they got them? Me, right? And guess what? Same's true for me. Like, who kicked open doors for me or who put in a good word for me? But when you don't know anyone, when you have literally no social capital in this city, because nobody knows you, you don't even have a teacher to vouch for you. Mm-hmm. So they walk in and try to get a job. Of course, they're not going to be successful. Yeah. But it makes a difference when somebody knows somebody. So I love the name of your podcast, Passion to Paycheck. And I would take it a step further and say passion to paycheck to purpose. Yeah. And that's the beauty of Bakersfield Angels. I say all the time, so we have a tagline called What's Your Thing? And I say, tell me what you do and I'll tell you how you can help. And I can tell you two already exactly how you could help. There isn't a vocation here in town that even if you didn't become a mentor, you couldn't put to use for our foster care community. You could do training for guys in our programs that want to learn how to work out, because what's better for your mind than working out your body, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you could help, fix up cars for our youth so that more of them have transportation. Everybody has something they can do. And so, I think so often we think giving back to our community, there's a certain way to do it. But I'm like, no, use what you're already good at. There's nothing that these kids couldn't. You're a painter? Great. Paint these youth's apartments before they move in so that they move in somewhere nice. You have a carpet business? Great. Give them some new carpet so they don't move into these gross places with damp, disgusting carpet. Like everybody can do something. And I say all the time, not everyone is called to foster and not everyone is called to adopt, but everyone can make a difference in the life of a child. And so if we all collectively said, hey, I'm going to use my passion and I'm going to use my paycheck to create purpose in this city, our city would just look different.
Oh, yeah. If everybody could just help a little bit,
right.
That's all we need.
Little things with big love is what I say, right? Just little things with big love is how you change this world. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how many lives have you impacted as far as the kids since you started?
Yeah. Wow. Since we've started. Well, I will say, like I said before, we have 2,000 kids experiencing foster care right now in this moment. I believe we've had about 220 of them in our programs. Mm-hmm. But that's in this instance. Right. So over time, I would say probably around 400.
Wow, that's amazing.
It really is. But you know what? One at a time.
Oh, yeah, one at a time.
And I say that about statistics. I like to talk about those because I think they're shocking when you hear them. You're like, what? How is that possible? But what I want to say is every statistic has a name, right? And every name has a story. So it's really all about the one. It's like, what can you do for one?
Right.
What would you do for all 2,000? Could you do it for one? It's just, and that's the beauty of mentorship. It's just one-on-one mentoring.
Has there been any lessons you've learned throughout this last 4.5 years running Bakersfield Angels?
Yeah. That I need God way more than I thought I did. So here's something I tell our mentors all the time, and I've learned it in my parenting. 4 words. It's not 4 words. It's not 3 words. I don't know. It's not personal. Just to not take things that these kids do and say so personal. And I tell our mentors, it's like they're acting out their own trauma. So don't take things personally and just keep showing up. I believe the most important thing we'll ever do on this earth is showing up for other people. That's more important than anything. Any check you could write me, 100%. Mm-hmm. For a lot of people, it's way easier to write a check than to give of their time. And I'll take your money, by the way, because I'm a nonprofit. So people can always, write a check to Bakersfield Angels. But the bigger gift is the gift of time. And kids spell love Time, right? And so, I think the other lesson that I've learned is just start where you can and do what you can. Don't worry so much. If I was, if every night I was just worried about all 2,000, right. And when I sign off every email until every child is reached, because I do believe that in my lifetime that can happen. Mm-hmm. But you can't let the enormity of the problem stop you from doing the little thing that you can do. And so that's it. And you know what other lesson I learned? There's really good freaking people in Bakersfield. This is such an invested community. People, when they hear about the problem, they want to get involved. I have no doubt after this podcast, we'll see applications come through because people are like, oh, I've been looking for some way to give back. Yeah. And I do think that's why Bakersfield Angels is so unique is people are like, oh, that I can do. I could hang out with a kid twice a month. That'd be cool. Yeah. And I can expose them to stuff I already love. It's not like I have to learn something I don't know how to do or I have to be good at math to be a mentor. It's you just get to be you with a kid.
And it's fulfilling, to give back in any way, shape, or form. It makes you feel good.
I say all the time in my office, I can't decide what I like more, watching more. Kids in foster care feel supported and loved and valued, or mentors' lens being changed for the way they see things. Because once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Yeah. And so now all of a sudden, so I'll tell you guys a quick little story. The very first fundraiser we ever had, I asked for a certain amount, for people to donate to help a kid. And it was a lot, probably. I can't remember. $800 or something. So I'm like, hey, if you want to help change the statistics, that's what we say. Our North Star is to change the stats. Yeah. So the ask is $800 a kid or something. So someone there filled in their pledge. They wanted to help 7 kids. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. So I call him to thank him that week. Hey, thank you so much for your donation. And he said, oh, that's our family's lucky number. So we just wrote down 7, whatever. And he said, but the next day I was driving to work and a homeless person was walking in front of my car. And I thought to myself, I wonder if he grew up in foster care. And then I thought I should have done 10. And I just love that idea. It's like, once you've learned, you guys will see it. I promise you in this next week, something about foster care will come across your path.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll be like, oh, there it is again, because once you've been,
right there.
that's
Yeah,
it.
that's a
And
sign.
once you've been exposed, and it's when I love taking the comfortable people of Bakersfield and afflicting them for these kids, because it's like, you can't just go about your little life, doing your little job and taking care of your little family and not care that there's kids out there that don't have those advantages. And then people have big opinions like, oh, get rid of the homeless people in this town. They're everywhere. They're just, trashing up our town, making us look bad. And it's like, well, have you given any thought whatsoever into how you can make an impact so that we have less homeless people in our town? I have an idea, like walk alongside a youth before they turn 18 so that when they turn 18, they don't end up on the streets of Bakersfield.
Yeah. And do you have a team that helps you with everything you're doing, like organization?
Yeah. So we actually have grown from a staff of 0 to 14 in just the last 4.5 years. So yeah, I have 7 case managers, I believe. Yeah, we have a whole team and we have a lot of support programs for it. So the beauty is when you sign up to be a mentor, we don't just go like, okay, here's your youth. Jose, you're off to the races. Good luck. Hope it works out. You're assigned a case manager. They check in with you each month. Hey, does he have any big birthdays coming up? Is there anything we can help with? Can we help pay for his football? Because we never want someone to quit mentoring because of the financial commitment. That's my job, is to raise money so that we can support these kids. And so I 100% just lost my train of thought. I don't even remember what your question was. I just went crazy. Oh,
how about your team?
Yeah. So also we do quarterly mixers with all of our mentors and youth. So we have a cornhole tournament. We do a bingo night. We do a movie night. We're going to take a bus to the beach. Well, probably multiple buses to the beach this summer so that they can put their feet in the sand for the first time. So we really walk alongside our mentors to really empower them and provide training. So it's really simple. You fill out an online application. Our website is bakersfieldangels.org. You can look up Dare to Dream. You just fill out an application. It asks you things like, what are your interests? Like, what are you good at? What's your line of work? And then during the onboarding, you get background checked, like a live scan. And then you do a couple hour training, submit a couple references, and then it's like off to the races. So it's pretty simple. And then once a month, you submit a report, like I said, just kind of saying, hey, we hung out twice. This is what we did. He's saying maybe he needs some help with budgeting. We put on workshops for that kind of stuff.
Oh, nice.
Teach them how to do their laundry. I mean, you guys, it's the basics, right? Like if you've never been taught that, if you think back in your life, all the skills you've learned, somebody taught you.
Yeah.
Somebody said, this is how you lift weights.
And they never had that. So
I mean, how do
they
you
just need a little bit of guidance.
That's it. Just a little bit goes a long ways.
And what's one of the main ways you guys raise money? Do you guys have like a big event each year?
Yeah, so a few different things. So there's a day here in Kern County called Give Big Kern. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's the first Tuesday of May. So every nonprofit in town participates in that. So we do Give Big Kern, and we also have one big fundraiser a year in October where we raise a big chunk of our money then. And then we're always looking for monthly donors, people that'll sign up and say, hey, I'll give you $25 a month. Consistent donors is really helpful when you're planning a budget because it's not like, is it coming or is it not? Like, they're signing up. We partner with businesses here in town that will give, and then we apply for grants. But the one thing we don't do is take any money from the government. We're all private donations because it just allows us a little more flexibility and doesn't bog us down with reporting.
Right.
So gives us a little bit more freedom.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how do you guys get those partnerships with as far as like the Bakersfield businesses? You reach out to
Yes. And anybody that owns a business that's listening to this or that works somewhere, reach out to us. Again, we do employee engagement days where we'll come or we'll have you to our office and we'll build like care packages or boxes like for back to school or things like that. I reach out. We are always looking for businesses to partner to hire our youth.
Okay.
So, we've had partnerships with Sequoia Sandwich or Body Exchange or Crumble Cookie, where if our kids, but the thing is, we need businesses all throughout Bakersfield to sign up for this, because most of these kids do not have transportation. So they can only work somewhere that they can ride a bike to or walk to. And so always looking for somebody, if you're willing, and then we don't need high level positions. If they could sweep your shop, that's perfect. You know, it's just something for them to start learning how to, you know, show up on time and do the things. Just those first jobs are so important. So we're always looking for people to say, hey, I'll give them a chance. I'll pay a minimum wage and let them show up at my work to give them a job. So that's always a huge need.
What's one of the biggest ways you guys bring awareness to the local community to get more information about this program? Yeah.
Things just like this. So I'm always on the circuit, like going to
exposure.
Going to podcasts, going to Rotary clubs. Okay. Whenever I'm asked to speak, next week is the Bakersfield Prayer Breakfast. I'm doing the prayer for nonprofits. So whenever you give me a mic, I'm going to be barking about these kids, just trying to go like, hey, people, we got to wake up. We can do better, and the change starts with you.
Oh, yeah. I like that.
Mm-hmm. And since you've been in the program, have you found misconceptions about the foster care programs or the community?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think one misconception, a lot of people think that foster parents are in it for the money. Like, oh, they, foster for the money.
That's a big one.
And that's a big one. And the reality is, well, first of all, I mean, you might have an empty bed in your house and you're not fostering. Like, it's taking care of kids from hard places is next level. And I don't think there's a dollar amount you could put on it. It's taxing. It's a big responsibility. And foster parents are responsible for taking these kids to court and to therapy and to doctor's appointments and to family visitations. It's a really heavy lift. Yeah. And, I will always say the number one highest and holiest calling that we need is healthy foster homes in Kern County. So if anyone's ever felt like they were called to open their home, that to me, don't volunteer with me, do that. Because when these kids are taken from a hard situation, to have a soft place to fall, that's the most important thing. So I think that's a misconception. I think some people forget that these kids haven't done anything wrong. So some people are like, oh, well, they're in foster care. They are in the detention center or whatever. And it's like, you have to remember, they didn't choose this life. They were born, nobody gets to choose which zip code they're born into, right? And what family circumstance. And so just knowing that they deserve every opportunity every kid has, I think that's another one that, for whatever reason, some people think is true.
Nice. Then what would you say is the long-term outlook as far as the program?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, our North Star is to change the stats. So really looking like one kid at a time until every child is reached. And so for me, the success bar, I'm not trying to say I want every kid in our program to graduate college and become a judge. Yeah. I want them to manage 7-Eleven, and I want them to, do whatever. Yeah. I want long-term, I want these kids not to be on our streets, not to be in prison, and not to live in poverty. That's what I want. Mm-hmm. And I think that any time those three don't happen, that's a success. That's a success story.
That's great. That's what you want.
Yep.
From the mentors you guys had, how's the feedback from them?
Fantastic. I mean, I think, like you said, I said earlier, their lives are changing as much as they're changing somebody's life. And to live a life of purpose is everything. It's when you put your head on your pillow at night, like, what is it really about? And when you get to the end of your life, is it really about how much money you made? Is it really about how many people know who you are? Or is it about how many lives did you affect? And that's, for me, I just think it's so important for people to have an opportunity to still live your life, do your job, raise your family, be invested. And here's an opportunity to still give back and do something that's going to be, way outlive you. So, I mean, my prayer, my hope is that these kids have relational permanence. When they have this mentor in their life, that even when they're out of our program at 24, I hope someday somebody's sitting in this chair from our program that's 30 years old telling you my life was changed because I had one healthy, invested adult that said, you could do better. Like there's a whole big dream for your life. And that's why we call it Dare to Dream. So you have to think about it. It's really hard to dream about a future that you've never even seen. And that's the beauty of a mentor. You know, you have a youth come with you to your shop and watch you do that. If you've never seen someone work on a car, you don't ever dream about even working on a car, right? If you've never been inside a gym, you don't ever dream about the body that you could build. But when you're exposed to it, that changes everything. And so really that's my hope for these kids, is to get the exposure. That's when you start to dream about something. You're like, oh, I didn't even know this existed. Now this is something, maybe I could do this. Maybe this is something I could be a part of.
And how has your life changed in a positive outlook since you started this?
You know, we have core values, and our first core value is hope. And I think that I'm more hopeful than I've ever been for the future. I think that this is really hard work. I think every day carrying these kids' stories, I mean, what they have lived through and the things they've experienced and that they've seen, it could make you want to go get in your bed and throw the covers over your head and just say, this is just too much. But it's the opposite. I'm more hopeful than ever because I'm watching these kids. They have so much resilience. Like what they have lived through, they've lived through more in their 15, 20 years of life than I have in my 51. And so I'm so proud of them. I feel so protective of them. I feel so honored that I'm allowed to like even play a tiny role in their lives and to know them. They just make me want to be better. They just make me want to do better with the one life that I have, because I'm like going, man, these kids are overcomers. And what am I? I'm going to sit and cry about my little issues, you know, like, no. Yeah.
Then as far as like, say someone else wants to start a nonprofit, what kind of advice would you give to those people?
Buckle up, Buttercup. Yeah.
It's not going to be easy.
No, it is not going to be easy, but do it. But absolutely do it. You know, don't live life with regrets or shoulda, coulda, woulda. I say just, so interestingly, when I went through this whole process to start this nonprofit, my very last interview was Susan Ramirez, the one I mentioned before. At the end, she looked at me through my little laptop. You know, we were on Zoom. She's in Austin. And she said, you know, Allison, are you ready for this to be your full-time job? And I'm like, oh, hell no. Like, what? I have 4 kids. I run a dairy. Like, no, this is going to be my little passion project, right? And I hung up, and I remember texting some friends, and I was like, you know, I know Jesus told us to count the cost of following him, but this is more than I'm willing to pay. And one of my friends wrote back instantly, Allison, you're going to eat this elephant one bite at a time. And so that would be my advice for somebody that wants to start a nonprofit. Just eat that elephant one bite at a time. Don't get overwhelmed by the big picture. Just start taking those small bites day after day. Very similar to how do you build a body in the gym, right? It's just consistent every day. Just get after it. Do the next.
Life in general.
That's exactly. So don't worry. You'll all of a sudden wake up one day and you'll be there. Yeah. But it's the daily grind. It's the consistent. Just keep doing it and reach out to me. I'm always happy to encourage and help. You know, we're given these thoughts for a reason. You know, when you have hey, I kind of want to do this little thing, and I know I won't change the world, but I could change somebody's life. Yeah, that's a yes and amen. That's like, yeah, you should do that.
Yep.
And then as far as being a mother, like you said, you run a dairy and then doing this, how do you manage your time as far as like scheduling? Do you schedule everything, or kind of how do you go about it?
Probably not very well. No, you know, I'm big into block scheduling. So when I'm doing this, I'm doing this. You know, whatever it is that's the task at hand, I'm going to focus on that. And so I spend time at the dairy on Mondays. I do this work Tuesday through Thursday. Obviously, I take this home with me. I'm always available to my kids because they're my number one. So if they're going to call, I'm going to pick up that phone. But, you know, I live in a full life is my favorite. I'm not one to sit around and twiddle my thumbs. And so I like kind of a jam-packed schedule. I run best full throttle. If I have downtime, I'm not quite sure what to do with it anyway. So
I'm the same way.
Yeah. Then I just come on a podcast on Sunday, right? So, but that's the way I like to roll. I like to have a full schedule. I like to use my brain, like my mathy side of my brain at the dairy doing that. I like to use my compassionate heart doing this work. Being a mom's the best thing in the whole wide world. So I think it's a gift to live the life that I live. I feel very blessed that I can kind of have my fingers everywhere. And I love that when I was saying that here, the beauty of passion to paycheck, I love the ideas, right? Like don't don't compartmentalize those things. Don't have your passion and have your paycheck. And then I'd say that with your purpose, like marry those together. I always say, trying to find out, like, what is my gift to offer the world? Like, people all the time, it's like, how do you know what your gift is? And I said, well, and again, I happen to be a believer, but I said, well, usually 3 things. Number 1, you actually like it. You're supposed to like the work you do. You really are. You're supposed to enjoy it. So,
that's a passion.
Yeah. Like, if you don't enjoy taking care of little kids, maybe don't serve in Sunday school. You're supposed to like it. The second is that others affirm it. Like, others say, no, I see that that's a gift of yours. I always joke about American Idol. It's like, well, some people like singing, but when you watch the tryouts, you're like, has anyone ever told you could actually sing? Because your parents were lying to you. You actually can't. So you should like it. Other people should affirm it. And then lastly, you should see fruit from it. You should see that it's actually changing somebody's life or your life. And when you find those 3 things together, that you enjoy doing it, other people say you're good at it, and that you see you're bearing fruit from it, man, that's your sweet spot. Like, stay in that lane and just go all the way. And I think it's just so important in life. Don't be a jack of all trades and a master of none. Like, find what you're good at, do that, and then pay other people to do the other stuff. I'm just like, there's certain things that I'm not great at. And that's the beauty of our team at Bakersfield Angels. Every single woman there has her lane and her absolute advantage. And it's like, go all in on that. Like, I'll do what I'm good at. You do what you're good at. We don't all have to do the same thing.
Right. And that's how you build a great team.
Exactly. Yep. Shore up your weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
And be honest about them.
Yeah.
That's the important part, is just to be like, no, I'm actually not good at everything. And that's fine. And I actually don't like doing everything. So, yeah.
Yep.
So how many, you said there's 14 people?
Yep.
So with those 14 people, like, say when you're gone, does someone take your place as far as like running the organization?
Yeah. So actually just recently, just January 1st or somewhere around there, I know you had Mike Young on your podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mike's wife, Jen, is now my co-executive director.
Okay. Nice.
So we kind of partner together. I do finance and development now. So just raising the money, making the kind of the community connections. And then she's operations and programs. So just really making sure our programs are humming along. But yeah, whenever I'm gone, she's at the helm, and vice versa. So
awesome. So if there's anyone kind of interested in this program, what advice would you give to them to, as far as like getting their mindset ready to start a program like this?
You mean like interested in mentoring with our program? Yeah. Just fill out the application. There's no obligation. It's not, we don't say, oh, you filled it out, now you have to become a mentor. Filling it out just means like, I want to learn more. So when you fill it out, we set up a 1-hour Zoom with you to answer any questions you might have, help you decide, are you in a good stage of life for this right now? I mean, if you have 3 kids at home under the age of 2, probably not your time to do it, or maybe it is, because you can get out of the house. So we're going to just kind of lay out for you, what does this commitment look like? Kind of think, do we have any kids waiting right now that are even a good fit for what you have to offer? So I just say, take the first step. There's no commitment. It's just like, hey, I just want to learn more and see what it looks like. Everybody has good intentions, right? In life, doesn't everybody want to work out, eat good, get enough sleep, be a good human, blah, blah. But the difference between intention and results is action. So people mull things over way too long, I think. Yeah. It's like, oh, I'm going to weigh the pros and the cons and blah, blah, blah. And then a year from now, you're in the same place as you were last year. Yeah. So and
sometimes even longer. Just because you hesitate.
Sometimes it becomes your whole life, right? And then the next thing you know, your life's over and you're like, I didn't do any of those things. Yeah. So fill out the application.
Okay, good. And then you said the website was?
It's bakersfieldangels.org. And when you go there, it's a great website. We have videos, testimonial videos on there, all kinds of things that you can watch and see and kind of get an idea of what you're in for. Everything's there. And then also we're on social media. If you're not on social media, stay off it for the rest of your life. But, but if you're on it, and I know you guys are because your podcast is, but on Instagram, we're Bakersfield Angels, Facebook, LinkedIn. Okay, we do a really good job of telling our stories on Instagram. So follow us on there. And maybe if you think right now is not the time, you'll just continue to see us pop up in your feed. Yeah. And then finally, your conviction will get the best of you.
Yeah, there you go.
And then I'll see your application in May or something.
You'll get the calling.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that way our audience has all the details.
Yep,
If they're interested, and they can follow you as well.
Yep.
So we'll go ahead and start wrapping up the podcast. And for the last part, what's one piece of advice you would give to anyone, whether it's life, fitness, or just entrepreneurship, running a nonprofit?
What's one piece of advice? I don't know. You know, I'd say my one piece of advice is live a life you're proud of. Just live a life that on the other end, if you look back, you're like, you know what? I did it. Like, that's the way I wanted to do my life. I think so often you just you get so focused on what you're doing today that you forget the big picture of your life. But it's like, what do you want people to say about you at the end of your life? You know, right. I've always said, if my tombstone said 3 words, she showed up, that's all that would matter to me. So I just say, don't overcomplicate things. Just show up for people. Show up when you get invited places. Show up when people need support. When you can hear in somebody's voice they're struggling, show up for lunch. I just had lunch with a dear friend right before I came here because I could just tell the last couple times I talked to her, like, something feels a little off. Mm-hmm. And so make the phone call, send the text, schedule the appointment, you know, whatever it is that it is about life. Bakersfield Angels is what it is because I showed up. That's it.
That's right.
I just showed up on the scene and said, I'm going to do what I can do. And every part of my life, the body I've built, the things I do, the investment in my kids, it's show up for people.
I like that. That's definitely a nice piece of advice.
Yeah.
So thank you again for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode. What's your story?